piss your pants.
Piss your pants.
I said piss your pants.
You sick mother. Phyllis, he got me.
Piss your pants.
Welcome back to the Haddonfield Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark.
And I'm Tawan.
And today we're reviewing The Last House on the Left, released in 1972, written and directed by Wes Craven. Tawan, can you give the people the plot summary?
On the eve of her 17th birthday, Mary Collingwood tells her parents that she is going to the concert of an underground band, Bloodlust, in New York with her friend Phyllis Stone. She borrows the family's car and heads with her friends to a dangerous neighborhood in the city. Meanwhile, the sadistic and cruel Krug Costello and Fred Weasel Podolsky escape from prison and are back to a hideout with their partners Sadie and Krug's addicted son, Junior Stello, after killing 2 guards and 1 shepherd dog in their runaway. The 2 girls seek marijuana near the theater and meet Junior, who offers them some Colombian grass if they follow him to his apartment. They do and are subdued by the criminals that rape Phyllis. On the next morning, they hide the girls in the trunk of their convertible and head to Canada. However, they have a problem when the car is robbed and they stop on the road close to Mary's house. When Phyllis tries to escape, the gang stabs her to death and shoots Mary after humiliating and raping them. The gang seeks shelter in Mary's home. During the night, her mother overhears a conversation of the criminals telling that they have killed their daughter. She and her husband plot and overpower the criminals and revenge the death of their princess.
So, Last House on the Left. This movie was, I first saw it when I was young, and I don't know, I love the gritty style of horror movies from the 70s like this and the OG Black Christmas and the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I love the gritty 70s style, but like this movie was kind of confusing on the rewatch because it will cut from these like intense sexual assault murder scenes to the next scene that has like some hokey music playing in the background. And then it cuts to the mom like feeding the sheriff like desserts and shit. I was like, what kind of what editing were y'all doing back in the 70s? Like, what the fuck is this? Was that throwing you?
It was definitely throwing me, and I was so confused on the tone. Like, I was watching it, and like this, it was like the scene where Mary and Phyllis, they were like getting them out the trunk and stuff, and putting them in the forest because they were decided they were going to kill them, and next thing you know, the next scene I see is they're at the parents' house putting up decorations and making a cake, and it's like happy go music playing in the background, and I'm like, what is this tone shift right now? And it's like there were no like transitions, so it just like cuts over either. So like it'll just cut over to like something else happening, and it would be a whole different like tone shift, but not even like in a good way. Like it wasn't like cutting out. It wasn't like cutting in between like the horror, like what was seeing. It was like jarring almost, like, oh, now we're with this. Then we'll leave like that happy-go-lucky scene with the little like banjo funny music in the background and switch back to these girls being assaulted, and it was just not like adding up altogether.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, even that one scene, like the scene where it goes from the only time it made sense is when you have this scene where they're telling her like if she makes a peep they're gonna die. Then it cuts to the parents being worried. That matched, and then it cut back to them. Now it cuts back to the sexual assault scene, and then the next scene is like they're in the daytime. It's the next morning, and they're carrying the girls down the stairs to put them in the trunk, and that whole scene is undercut with like whimsical music.
Yeah,
Like, what the
it was
fuck?
like that a lot, man. I was definitely like a bit confused watching it, and I don't know, cause like this is my first time seeing at least this version, like the original. I've seen the remake one prior, but never went back and watched this one. So in my head, because I had the remake in mind, I thought this was gonna be like grittier. But I understand like it's also a product of the times as well, and it didn't go like it went far as
This
like
definitely this definitely had to be shocking in the time.
yeah, because like to me, like and I was telling you this before we even recorded. Like I don't know, maybe I've been desensitized or whatever, but like
I
while
mean, we
I
just watched
understood,
Terrifier a couple months
you're
ago.
right,
Like,
and it's like while I understood like what the gravity of the situation was, it it came across like way more depraved and terrible in the remake than this one, and like I said, maybe it's just like product of the times type of thing, and like the way that movies were shot, and people were just more like modest, like at the time, spread when it came to like entertainment and stuff. Like they could get away with a lot more. Um, well, not a lot. Well, in a sense, they could due to like ratings and stuff, but um. There's definitely a lot more going on now, but people are still like very modest when it came to like movies and stuff. So I could see how this would be like really shocking back then
I
because
mean, before this, everything was like fuck a sexual assault scene. They couldn't even show husband and wife in bed together back then. They had to have like one foot on the floor. They had to be like they couldn't even show any kind of like consensual sexual contact. Like showing divorce in the movie was taboo, let alone this. So this was
yeah,
like groundbreaking. We gotta like stone Wes Craven to death territory.
yeah, I could definitely see why for the time, but looking at this like now with all the shit that I've like seen in my little life so far as movies and TV shows and shit, just even stuff online in general, this wasn't it wasn't that out there, but I mean, it wasn't a bad watch either.
I'm the opposite of you. I've seen this one more than I've seen the remake. I've only seen the remake once. No, I'm automatically biased against remake. A remake can be good, but I will still like have irrational hate for it. But I will say, from what I remember the remake did make it darker, and they did change a bit. So I can't wait to watch that next week. But were there any scenes that stood out for you? Because there were a few that stood out for me, not in like a good way, more confusing. That whole car ride when they had the girls in the trunk,
Yeah.
and like he's just having, they're just him and Krug and Sadie are just having sex,
Okay,
and
so they were.
yeah, because he kept on saying you're
Shut up, Weasel, you're disturbing my rhythm.
and he kept making those facial expressions, and
Like
she was bouncing up and
I
down
could
and
tell
making
if
facial
that's what they were
expressions.
doing, or she was just like up and down on his lap, like trying
I
to
mean,
fuck with him.
because I had to rewind it because I was like, are they having sex? And they were having sex. Like she was on top of him, and he kept on saying, "You're breaking my concentration," and he was making faces, and she was growling and making faces. But like your like Fred is right there, and your son is like driving the car. Like at least tell Fred to get in the fucking passenger seat and not be next to you talking about sex crimes while you're having sex with the oddest music playing in the background.
The
It was
music was
just too
crazy.
it was just too much for me. And then okay, the whole scene with Phyllis in Mary in the Woods was just, that had me like, oh my god, I was kind of squirming. And
Yeah.
when she got away and then they all cornered her, like they all surrounded her, Phyllis, I was like, oh no, she dead. The scene with the mom and Fred
Oh my
when she
god.
was giving him the blowjob and then she bit him, I was like, I had like a visceral reaction at first, and then I was like, okay, that went on way too long. Like you were down there for like you didn't even need to be down there for like a second. Like once it was in your mouth, you should have bit it off. Like you were down there a minute too long for me. But what about you? Were there any scenes that stuck out? Good, bad, or indifferent.
Um, one. Hmm, well, I will say I dislike this scene because I dislike their decisions in trying to was when the initial basically them getting caught up when Phyllis was asking Junior for weed.
You know where we could score on some good grass, do you?
Nah, I don't know that stuff.
Well, thanks. Bummer. Come on.
Oh. Hey, lady, come on back here. Let's get together.
Yeah?
And being someone who like stuff about like dealers and stuff, I'm not following anybody that I just met into their house, even if it's to get whatever. Like, bring that shit outside, or like go inside, take my money and bring it back. I'm not going in somebody's random house to get like drugs, weed, any of that shit. So I didn't like that because of the decision making, but I also understand, like, they're 17, whatever, blah blah blah. But even still, like, even at the age, like, I would have been very wary of that situation, and I would just say I didn't like the character motivations in that scene. Um, let's see. Another scene that I didn't like was the whole like chase with the chainsaw. I don't know. It was just like really slow. It felt really slow when the dad was just chasing Krug around with that damn chainsaw, like trying to get him. Like, I don't know. It felt like everybody was moving super slow for some reason with that. Um, then you have the mom outside, like, fighting Sadie at the same time, and I don't know. Like, it just it felt off. I'm not sure why. And besides that one, I will also mention like the scene in the woods. It was like uncomfortable. Like, that was probably the most in the movie. That was definitely like the most uncomfortable I was, like, with the whole scene in the woods when they finally like surrounded Phyllis after she ran away and stuff. So that one was definitely, I would say, the most uncomfortable I felt like watching the whole movie. But besides that, just due to like the way the tone shifts were in certain scenes, I was just like not get. I feel like I wasn't getting like the full effect. And before I forget, I do not understand that scene with um the lady Ada with the chickens.
Get to the Collarwood place right away. Now, this is police business, and this is an emergency, you hear? Can you help us out?
That's right on the roof.
On the roof?
The only place I have in the room.
What was the purpose of that? It felt like a random like comedy skit from like some like old TV show that was put in this movie for no reason. Because
I
I
was
don't
like, why do they have this the only black person in the movie, and she's talking about fucking chickens? I was like, what the hell is this?
know. It felt so out of place, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like,
I
that's
was like,
another one of
I
those
feel kind
weird
of
cut
offended.
moments.
I
It
feel
is.
kind of offended.
It was just another one of those like weird cuts that happen, and it was like, okay. And I don't know, those fucking sheriffs felt incompetent the whole movie.
You could have cut them out the movie and nothing would have changed. Like, why were they? We saw them eat cake. We saw them talk to chickens. We saw them. You see a car broken down by these people's house, and you don't investigate. You keep on rolling by. You
They
you
were
then
just
you
there
you
for
didn't realize
shenanigans.
that car has the escaped convicts. Yes, I get run out to go get them, but you didn't think to pick up the phone and try to warn them first. You just left, and then they said it only takes 25 minutes. So 25 or 30 minutes is what they said when they left the police station. It was daytime. Cut back to the house. It's fucking night, and everyone's going to sleep.
To you, right?
And then I'm like, so now you guys are in the woods searching. At no point did you think, oh, we should probably go to their house first, since the car was like parked right there by their house. off on the side of the road. No, let's go check the woods first. Let's fuck going to check on the old couple. Let's just go check the woods all night. And you don't hear the chainsaw, you don't hear the screaming. The guy got his dick bit off by the lake. You don't hear any of that. Like, why are you here? Why are you here? Uh,
They were so
Anything
incompetent.
else?
No, I think that was it.
What about kills? Was there any kills that stood out for you?
um, Probably just Frank's because of how funny that was. Him just getting his dick bit off, and I'm guessing bleeding out. I probably would have said Krug if we saw it. But since like it
Yeah.
wasn't shown, I don't think I will say yes to that.
For me, I would say Junior. Because you could tell that kid just needed help. Like, he was with his dad. Because if you read his dad got him into drugs. His dad had him doped up so he could
Hmm.
control him. Like, that kid just needed like help, and then his dad talked him into shooting himself. Like, what the fuck? And then like Phyllis and Marie, that was traumatizing. That was a whole thing, and having her walk into the lake and then shooting her,
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god. And I wish that the setup and the killing of the bad guys had been more.
and I think that's why I like the remake.
Because I feel like we spent so much time, like, the girls leaving and the girls meeting them, and like, yes, spend time on the assault, spend time on that, because that's pretty much the basis of the movie. But then like the car scene was too long. It was too long. That was too much. We didn't need all of that. And then the constant cutting back and forth to the parents, and then the unnecessary thing with the chicken lady, and there's like all these unnecessary scenes could have been cut out or cut short, and you could have given more time to the climactic battle.
Hmm.
And like, this is Wes Craven's first movie, and I'm so glad that he learned from this, because when you go to like the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and when you go to like Scream, like, the climactic battle is way more drawn out and well thought out and longer. Like, it needs to be. Like, give me a good 15-20 minutes of the last like climactic fight, like he does in his other movies. That's what I needed from this.
Yeah,
But enough about that. What about Phyllis? What are your thoughts on Phyllis?
I mean, aside from that initial character decision of hers to go like try, not saying it was like bad that she was trying to get drugs. I mean, people 20s, early teens and stuff, um, they try to like do stuff like that, but just the way that she went about it with deciding to follow someone in their house and get drugs, that's where she lost me as far as character decisions are concerned. Um, but outside of that, I mean, there was nothing really wrong with Phyllis. Like, obviously, like Mary's parents, like, well, more so her mom, she was like indifferent on her, just like due to the like way she acted, probably doing drugs, things like that. But I mean, you always gonna have people like that, and um, there's like nothing bad with what she was doing, but just that character decision kind of got them in their situation. But it's not her fault as well, because like obviously she wasn't going to have all that stuff happen to them, so she was fine, but that slight like lapse in judgment and what she did to like get what she wanted was kind of their downfall.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I won't even walk up to, like, if Like if this is our first time dealing with each other, I might even walk into your car. Like meet me outside the car by the bright street light, so people, so I can see you, see me, people can see us. Like I don't care, and like you got to be a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, like for me to fucking walk into your house, let alone your car. But
Hmm.
I guess it was different back then. It was 1972. They were hitchhiking, hopping in fucking
True.
random cars on the interstate to state, and hop into truck driver cars, and we all know how that what that ended up being, like fucking serial killer buffet. So it was a different vibe back then, way different. But for me, I kind of switching from Phyllis to Mary. Was it Mary or Maury? What was it? Mary? It was Mary, right? Or Marie?
Mary.
Switching to Mary, it was like she just turned 16. Like I, I'm out of I lived in the suburbs for a little bit, but I mostly grew up in the city. So me traveling around the city, going different places, that that was normal for me at 16. But like no, but like coming from the suburbs, and I'm gonna be at a concert until 2 a.m. at 16, and I have to get back by myself, even if I'm driving my parents' car, like that's a no go. And I get it was her 16th birthday, but like no, like my parents would have dropped me off and picked me up.
Yep.
16 is 16 is not 18. You cannot be, especially if it gets out at 2 a.m. If it's a concert, it's different. My mom would have been like, "Okay, I'll pick you up when the concert's out." Especially if I gotta go all the way back to the burbs. Poor Mary. She so young, so naive. What about you? What are your thoughts on Mary?
Yeah. See, I didn't mind Mary's character, and yeah, I also understood that like she just wanted to have a good time. She just wanted to go to city with her friend, go to a concert, which I get that. I'm a big concert goer, even at that age. Like I was like going to concerts and stuff, so I definitely understand. Um, but being that she even noticed that they were in like a sketchy part of town once they got there, like commented on what her mom told her earlier in the movie, like head should have been on a swivel and not even. I think she should have talked Phyllis out of that situation, not situation, but talked her out of like going into someone's house. But once again, not trying to like blame them for like what happened, but it's just being somewhere that you're not used to and putting yourselves in certain situations. It does like even if they did get the drugs and that was fine, it's still like sketchy to like just someone you meet immediately go to their place and like search drugs and things like that. But um, she, because I'm trying to remember. She was the one that noticed that they were by their parents' place when they pulled out the car, right? Like after they pulled them out the trunk, her and Phyllis.
What can you say? Can you say that again?
Didn't Mary notice that they were like by her house when they pulled her out the trunk and such?
Yep,
Correct.
because she saw her name on the
Yes.
mailbox.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So she saw her name on the mailbox and stuff, and it was good that she was like paying attention and things like that. But um, crap, I had a train of thought going somewhere. Let me let me refresh. Uh, crap. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. Well, okay. So yeah, it was good that she noticed that she was in like her area and everything where she's supposed to be, and tried to get away. But aside, I would say aside from all of that, there wasn't anything that I would say there wasn't much more that she could have done to kind of get out of the situation. So she kind of just had to deal because like they were outnumbered anyway, 4-2, and once Phyllis was gone, it was 4-1. So there wasn't really much that she could really do to get herself out of the situation that she was in. It's just luck that she survived long enough for her to be found.
Yeah, poor Mary. But what about Sadie? Now they kept on saying that Sadie was like in a news report. They're like some animal like woman, and I was like, what makes her animal? They showed me zero reason for a news report to be saying she was animal like. It was like, and I was like, is it because she's like sex craved? Like, why are they describing this
Probably.
woman as animal? Eh, what are your thoughts on Sadie?
I thought Sadie was a weird character because I don't like when she first got introduced. I thought that um I thought she was intertwined with all the stuff that they were with like all like that group in particular were doing in the movie, but at the same time, um I couldn't tell. That's what I was looking for. I thought she was intertwined with all they were doing, but at the same time, I couldn't tell like if she had like a remorseful moment at the time when she was chasing if she was chasing either Phyllis or Mary, and I think it was Phyllis, and she hit her with the rock. But before that, Mary was like, "Oh, I want to help you," but she sounded very sincere. Maybe it was just her like getting like trying to trick her and stuff. But I thought like she was gonna be like the remorseful one, which ended up being Junior for the most part. Um, so I thought that, but they didn't really give her much to do, like outside of kind of making her sex crazed in a sense. Like she was messing around with Krug, and they kind of just boiled her down to just being the woman who wasn't getting assaulted in this movie.
Yeah, like I was waiting. She was animalistic and she kicked the dog to death, and then they kept showing this dog with them. Like, is she gonna kick this dog to death? But then it never happened, and I'm just like, okay, you set up that she was like, just as mad and as crazy as the guys, but all I've seen her do is ride Crew's dick, be kind of flirty with Fred, be kind of flirty with Junior, and then at the end
Run away.
when she's running away and she's telling Crew to like stay away from her and she has a knife on him, I'm like, I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm glad that the mom still killed her and slit her throat because I was like, she's not innocent in this.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, she had to go.
Yeah, but speaking of Junior, he was the only one of the four that I kind of felt sorry for because I was like, this poor drugged up kid is just like following probably his only parent that he's known because we don't know
Hmm.
where his mom is at. So this could be his only parent. He's young and drugged up, and I felt so bad for him. But what are your thoughts on Junior?
Yeah, I thought the same about Junior. That he really didn't have a choice. Like I'm sure if it was up to him, like he would have left a long time ago and got away. But he's drugged up. Like you mentioned, that's the only parent he has, and like unfortunately for him, that group is kind of like his family, and there was really nothing else that he could kind of do about it. And you could tell like he wasn't kind of like all the way there at all times as well. So maybe like some mental deficiency as well going on, and because of the like in like certain ways he kind of acted like a kid at times, like when he was saying that he was rather be like a frog so that he could just jump away and have a lily pad to himself. Just like little stuff like that, and even like towards the end, you can tell he was remorseful especially when he was sleeping and he was having like a bad dream about everything that happened and was saying like I'm sorry, that he probably didn't want to do any of the things that they were getting into, but at a certain point like he didn't really have a choice to do so, so he just participated. So he was an unwilling participant, but he still like gave in to what they were doing. So even though he did maybe not have wanted to, due to like, you know, being an addict and stuff like that, he still like gave in and didn't stop what happened.
What are your thoughts on Fred?
Man, fuck Fred. Like he was a dick the entire time. And I was just glad at the end when the wife got him right. Honestly, he deserved more than all that. But I was really just glad that he died the way he did because he was a fucking sexual deviant, and he was also just along with Krug was just they were just talking down to like Junior the whole time. So that was also like kind of annoying as well. But in the um, in the end, besides like what we actually got to him, I feel he could have had a little more happen. Plus, if I recall, they say he was like a child molester too, so that's even like he deserved his shit way before whatever happened. Like at this point in time, in the movie universe,
What are your thoughts on the mom Estelle?
I thought that the mom was good because she had a very good eye at paying attention. Because if I recall, she was the one that noticed that Junior had that had Mary's necklace on and put two and two together with that, then decided to go do more research and look in their bags, and she found like the bloody clothes in there as well. And then, passed that info along to her husband very discreetly, got Mary, and ended up killing Fred and Sadie. Like the mom was high key the goat.
Yeah, like her finding Mary, her putting all that together, and like, damn, and it's still being calm to make sure the plan goes off without a hitch. Yeah, the dad, John, his the chainsaw fight was kind of weird and
It
awkward,
was.
and I was like, "What are you doing, Dad? What are you like?" I got it, but then I didn't get it. Like, you had the shotgun. Why didn't you just shoot them both? Why did you need them to wake up?
That's what I'm saying.
Like if you're going to kill them anyway, why not just do it when it's easier?
I didn't get that at all. He could have. I would have shot both of their asses right there in that fucking bed. Buck waking up.
Like, what are your thoughts on the dad?
That that decision, like, would have me like questioning, like, what is he doing? Because like, why would you go to the room with a shotgun, wake them up, give them a chance to react, and say, like, if you're gonna shoot him, just shoot him. At that point, like, it's no going back. Like, just do it. So that kind of like annoyed me. Um, Aside from that, the dad wasn't. He was responsible. Well, not responsible. He was responsible in what his wife told him, and like took what she said, didn't like try to like question it, and just went with what she said, which I give him props on. Um, but besides that, and killing Krug, he uh he didn't do much towards the end, and because I'm remembering, I've just seen it, and I'm like trying to remember, and yeah, he didn't really do much towards the
He
end.
was very reactionary. His wife was she was discovering everything. I'm pretty sure she's the one who came up with the plan. I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure she told him what to do. Like she was like active and he was reactive from what
Yeah,
I was seeing.
that I would agree with. I would say the
But
dad
what are
did
your
more in the in the remake.
but what are your thoughts on Krug?
I was just waiting for him to get his time to shine
Honestly.
because he was pissing me off. Like he was the fucking worst. Like when he told Phyllis that she had to piss herself. Like that was crazy, and he was just being a dick like the whole time, like even to like his group and stuff. Like he was just not like all of them were like deplorable, but there's always got to be that one that's like the worst, and I felt like he was the worst out of all of them.
Yeah, I was like, says this is the de facto leader, but like, how does this group of people even like meet to like grow, like be a gang? Like I don't understand. Like, how are y'all a group? Like y'all all seem, other than Junior, the other three all seem like alpha crazy people. Like someone like Krug, even if he's like this rapist crazy person, I don't think he would hang out with someone like Fred, who's a fucking child molester. And then what the fuck is Phyllis doing there? Like that whole group just seemed mismatched and just didn't fit. Like I needed to know how these people fit together, because them just breaking out of jail together and that's why they're still together. Like it just didn't feel right. And Krug was just, I was waiting for him to get his. He was pissing me off the entire time. Like the entire time.
No, very much that.
So, but like this was, overall this was an interesting movie, not bad. But before we get to that, can you give the people the behind the scenes info and facts?
So this film had a budget of $90,000 and brought in a box office of 3.1 million. Some interesting facts: this film was Wes Craven's feature film slash theatrical debut. It went through a bunch of titles before they settled on one. Wes Craven originally called the screenplay Night of Vengeance. Then it was Sex Crime of the Century, quoting a line from a dialogue from the movie. And then Krug and Company After the Villains was deemed not subtly ominous, until eventually someone came up with The Last House on the Left. Craven first envisioned Last House as a hardcore film with real unsimulated sex and even more graphic violence. It was after shooting had begun that Craven and his cohorts decided to tone it down into something slightly more commercial. Craven shot it like a documentary because that was all he knew. Besides the imitations and ripoffs it inspired, Last House also launched the careers of writer-director Wes Craven and his producer Sean Cunningham. Among other things, Craven would go on to make A Nightmare on Elm Street, while Cunningham was the man behind the Friday the 13th franchise. It took 34 years for this film to be improved in England. Some critics' reactions. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film currently has a score of 63%. The Chicago Tribune derided the film, writing, "My objection to The Last House on the Left is not an objection to graphic representation of violence per se, but to the fact that the movie celebrates violent acts, particularly adult male abuse of young women. I felt a professional obligation to stick around to see if there was any socially redeeming value in the remainder of the movie, and found none." The Pittsburgh Press called the film a cheap jack movie of no discernible merit, riddled with awkward, self-conscious performances. Howard Thompson of the New York Times wrote that he walked out of the theater during a screening. "When I walked out after 50 minutes with 35 to go, one girl had just been dismembered with a machete." Roger Ebert, however, gave the film 3.5 out of 4 stars and described it as about 4 times as good as you'd expect. That's interesting coming from Ebert.
Right? Ebert's do usually the hard ass.
No, for real.
Like what the hell? Because like in the '80s, he's known for like hating every single horror movie. Like that's interesting. But enough about them. What about us? Tuan, do we cash or pass The Last House on the Left, 1972? Tuan.
Honestly, I might have to pass on this one. I know it is like a cult classic and things of that matter, and it's a lot of people. What I don't know if it's a lot of people. I don't know if it's a lot of people's favorite, but I know like this is some people's like favorite for like this wave in the '70s. But I don't see myself coming back to specifically this original one. Now, maybe if I was showing someone, both this one and like the original back to back to compare, I probably will watch it again. But I just don't see myself watching this one if I wanted to watch something in that realm of movie. So I think I would pass.
I want to say Cash, I do, but when I'm thinking about the movie that I watched, it just felt so disjointed from having the whimsical score under violent, crazy scenes to the cuts to that random black lady with the chickens to like everything that was there that didn't need to be there and it wasn't cohesive. Now, this is gonna be my first time ever saying this, but this is a movie that needed to be remade because there is so much here and they do so little with it. And I think it's because of the times. Like Wes Craven wanted to go hard, but they had to pull it back because at the time, going as hard as he wanted, it wouldn't have been commercially successful. And this movie made a lot of money back. Like it was what 900,000. They got a couple million back. Like it was commercially a hit.
Hmm.
So like it just I wish we could have seen what he wanted to do because what this ended up being, like in its day, probably would have been like if we were watching this in 1972, I'd have been like, "This is fucking great. I'm terrified. I'm afraid." But like watching it now, it's like this could be so much better. So for me, it's a pass because I wouldn't pay to watch this movie. I mean, I watched it for free on YouTube, and then I watched it for free again on Tubi. Like I sat through those fucking commercials so I wouldn't have to pay for anything, and that's what I would do again because I wouldn't cash this. I have to pass. It's a pass for me, and it hurts for me to say that. But I hope next week we can turn things around with The Last House on the Left, which came out in 2009. You know, it's one of those 2000s horror remakes that was like big at that time. So that should be interesting. It should be good. From what I remember, it was a little darker in tone. I haven't seen it since 2009, so maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll continue to hate it. But hopefully, this time I would have valid reasons to hate it, other than it's just a remake. But we shall see. Thank you for listening. Good night. The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?